And welcome everyone. Welcome, dear colleagues from the US delegation. Please allow me to go over a few of the discussions we were doing today with the presence, the kind presence of all the representatives of the Arab delegations of the Codex Alimentarius. During this fourth coordination meeting related to the analysis of priority agenda items of the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues, CCPR 53. So briefly, if you allow me, I will go over the main priority agenda items we selected as priority for our analysis. On these agenda items, we performed helped by a team of experts from the Arab region, an analysis document. So we tried to analyze these items. We tried also to formulate recommendations related to what might be the positions undertaken by the Arab delegations during their participation to the next CCPR 53. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for introducing the Arab Codex initiative. So just wanted to mention and to add that all the developed documents enclosing this analysis provide a summary of the work currently under discussion by the CCPR, which may be useful for delegation from Arab countries to prepare their positions, taking into account the needs and specificity of the region and the potential impact of the proposed food standards on the Arab region. So we tackled the majority, approximately the majority of the provisional agenda items, starting from item 5A, 5B, and 6, related to maximum residue limits for pesticides, 7 and 8 related to the revisions of the classification of food and feed, item 9 about guidelines for compounds, management of compounds of low public health concern, items 11, 12, 13 related to Codex schedules and priority listing for pesticides for their evaluation or re-evaluation by JMPR. Item 14, 15 related to some analytical science aspects, guidelines on the use of mass spectrometric techniques, and the purity and stability of certified reference materials, as well as other items of interest like item 4, item 16 related to environmental inhibitors, item 17 also related to the way peel is considered when analyzing the food or not. So briefly, overall, the analysis performed by our Arab expert working group under the leadership of ETSMO and the participation of the Global Food Regulatory Science Society G-Force resulted in a general support for the majority of the conclusions and recommendations reached by the various electronic working groups related to all these items I previously mentioned. However, we had a few ideas, recommendations, possibilities of more active intervention that we would like to discuss further with you, and we would like to discuss it, of course, further with all the Arab delegations present today with us. Regarding, I will go briefly over the items, just highlighting our conclusions and recommendations. So related to item 5A about the equation IESTI, International Estimate of Short-Term Intakes. So the risk assessment community in the Arab region supports these developments, which will continue to enhance its own approaches and risk assessment, and that to enable the development of maximum residue limits, particularly relevant for the region based on occurrence and consumption data when available from the region. So you will notice that in our recommendations and after our analysis, we always focus and highlight the importance of generating and using weather occurrence data and particularly consumption data, which reflect the current situation in the Arab region. Now, related to the very important items 5B and 6 about maximum residue limits for pesticides in food and feed. So some specific considerations for some compounds were mentioned, and you can find them in our developed analysis documents. It is recommended also by the Arab Expert Working Group to invest more in the development of essential data to support dietary exposure assessment for pesticide in food, and particularly food consumption data, as I previously mentioned, relevant for the region, and to update the relevant cluster diet in the GEMS food database. Also to document the possible impacts and in particular the achievability of these maximum residue limits on the designated food commodities from the region, operator, competent authorities, industries from the region. Related to item 7A, about the revision of the classification of food and feed, and we had a lot to say, very interesting analysis, recommendations, and today, before you joined us, we had very interesting discussions and exchanges, particularly related to this classification item. And more particularly related to the item 7A about okra. Why? Because okra is considered as a very important food commodity consumed in the Arab region. We consume okra a lot, and we had kindly the intervention also of representative like from Egypt, Dr. Ashraf, who highlighted to us that Egypt is also a very important producer of okra and exporter. So this item is of a particular interest for the Arab region and Arab delegations. The Arab Codex delegation, and after our analysis, so we think that they may question the choice of chili pepper as a representative commodity for okra, while it does not seem to be a crop sharing similar attributes of aspect, texture, taste, consumption, agricultural practices, particularly for the region. So we tried as the Arab Expert Working Group affiliated to this Arab Codex initiative to suggest alternatives. So mainly our suggestions rely on 2 points to differentiate okra with an individual category classification group, and perhaps use eggplant as a crop from which we can extrapolate maximum residue limits, since it may have closer attributes and similar consumption attributes, similar agricultural practices, particularly for the Arab region. So we had a lot of very interesting discussions about this topic, and we are honored that we have you among us in order to share these ideas with you. Now, regarding item 7B, different revisions of classifications of food and feed. So for the class B, the proposed amendments in the classification system are well justified and can therefore be supported. So that was our recommendation by Arab Codex delegation. Our Arab Expert Working Group however, recommends continuous harmonization between CCPR and CCR-VDF on this matter and other matters related to homogenization and harmonization of definitions. Related to item 7C about class E, the proposals made by the Electronic Working Group seems to be logical by our point of view and well substantiated and could benefit from the support of Arab Codex delegations if they wish so. Item 7D and 8 related to this very important coordination between CCPR and CCR-VDF. So we think that Arab delegations can support all the proposed revisions related to this item. Item 7D and 8 about the coordination of work. So it is recommended that Arab Codex delegations, we recommend them to offer their support to the continuation of this work. And here with a possible commitment from Arab delegations to actively participate more in these activities related to the harmonization, because we think that we have an opinion and we have an intervention that we can give related to this harmonization work. Now, related to item 9, we discussed also this item about the management of compounds of low public health concern. After our analysis, we recommended Arab delegation that given the level of development of these guidelines, so we are speaking here about step 7, I think, about regarding this item, and their importance. So it is recommended that Arab Codex delegation support their advancement to the final adoption by 45 at step 8. And also we discussed the importance of implementing these guidelines in the Arab region and in the Arab countries. Now, then we were just discussing the items 11, 12, 13, and we tried to group those items in the same framework of prioritization and priority list of pesticides for evaluation and re-evaluation by GMPR. So we tried in our analysis to encourage the different Arab delegations and particularly competent authorities responsible for pesticide management to always and continuously review the status of compounds with no known public health concerns, yet unsupported with data as to their possible re-evaluation, to participate more actively to the calls for national registration information, and to participate more actively to the to replying to this Excel sheet, to this database about national registration information, and to remain aware of future schedules to be considered for evaluation and re-evaluation by GMPR and subsequently by CCP. Of course, with further details in our detailed documents. I don't know if you wish to add anything related to the prioritization of the evaluation, re-evaluation lists.
No, we don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Then we tackled also item 14 about the review of mass spectrometry provisions, the guidelines related to the use of mass spectrometry for qualitative and quantitative determination of pesticide residues in different food commodities. And we were just presenting and analyzing both documents, the guidelines already published in 2005 and the guidelines published in 2017 related to this topic. And after our detailed analysis and after studying the different comments received last year and before related to this item, we suggested the Arab delegations to support the simplification of these guidance through the revocation of the 2005 guidelines related to this topic and updating the guidelines published in 2017 if needed by adding missing information, let's say, in order to avoid redundancy related to this issue. At the same time, here the Arab region could have a major role to play, reaching out to, or Arab delegation can reach out to national food control laboratories and other regional organizations like the newly created Arab section of AOC International for more active participation in this regard. Now, following to item 15, related to certified reference materials. So here also about the initiation of this new work regarding the purity and stability of CRMs after their shelf life is expired or during storage after shelf life. So here also, after studying the working document, the discussion paper published, we may suggest for Arab Codex delegations to support the proposal of this new work on the development of guidelines for monitoring the purity and stability of these CRMs after their shelf life is expired, and at the same time also to play a major role and more effective role by reaching out to national food control laboratories, to Arab AOAC and other organizations, and to participate more actively to the electronic working groups that will hopefully be created after this work is accepted as a new work. So this issue also is very important for our food control laboratories in the Arab region. It's very important. It can reduce and lower the costs of our food control laboratories, and it can ease also the importation of these certified reference materials to the region. And at the end, we highlighted some further items of interest, which were item 4, 16, and 17, also related to the Arab region. Mainly item 16, highlighting the importance of considering environmental inhibitors, this new work, this new important issue for the region. So as this topic is a new emerging issue, so we could also recommend for Arab Codex delegations to consider following up on this item Arab food and feed competent authorities may also start investigating this issue with the possible generation of data on the prevalence of these chemicals in the region. At the same time, for item 17, very important, very interesting, also related to the consideration of the peel while analyzing food commodities and comparing with maximum residue limits. So as an Arab expert working group, also we recommend that Arab Codex delegation support this proposal with regards to restricting the applicability of pesticide MRLs to the edible portion without the peel. And also it can go into the framework also of our initial requests of considering the consumption habits of the Arab region more and more during the development of these Codex guidelines and decisions. And thank you so much. So that was mainly a brief cover-up of the different items. You may find further the detailed analysis and positions in the already published analysis documents. Thank you so much.